Fresh off the release of her latest book, Has Anyone Seen My Pants?, titled after an incident in Iowa, comedian Sarah Colonna is in Omaha for the second time. Her credentials include another book, which debuted at number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list, writing for Chelsea Handler's TV shows, and times scaring people for a living. We talked about all this before she started her run at the Funny Bone, which goes through Saturday. Hey everybody, Dustin Dale's back here. I'm at the Funny Bone Comedy Club this weekend. Got a very special guest. She was on Chelsea lately. She's got a couple books out that you might be familiar with. She's her second time in Omaha here this weekend. Please welcome Sarah Colonna.
Hello, hi. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. How was your trip to Omaha?
It was good. It's it wasn't good. It was it's 2 flights always to get here, but it's always easy. And I've only been to this club once before, but it's such a great club with awesome crowds. So it's one of those that I look forward to doing.
Now, I've always been curious. You know, there's a bunch of Funny Bone comedy clubs throughout the country. Do you get a difference with the feel of a Funny Bone comedy club as compared to a different club?
You know what you do? A lot of the Funny Bones are kind of set like a little bit outside of the downtown, which I think is great because it sort of brings in, like if you're downtown or if you're in the suburban area or wherever you are, if you live outside of the city, it kind of gives sort of a general location for everyone. And I feel like they sort of figure out where they should be. They're like, okay, this is the area and this is the place where, you know, there's so much going on around here with restaurants and shops and whatnot, and it kind of gives a lot of walk-ups, people that you would never maybe have seen you before. So I feel like they really locate their places and go, this is where we need to be in the city. You know, maybe it's not in proper downtown, but it's always in a good populated location.
Now, one thing I thought was really cool, you spent a lot of time on Chelsea lately.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was awesome. It was my first full-time writing job as a comedian, so that was really cool to, because on that show, you know, we were writers, but then also on the round table, so it was like we got to write for her, but then also write for ourselves. So it was my first experience of having to write for someone else, but then also on the same day having to write my own jokes for my own material, so it was challenging, but it was also really cool because you got to just do 2 completely different things at the same time.
Now, on that show, with the round table, they usually pop up a question, and then the comics usually go around. How much freedom did you get to kind of improvise as you went on that show?
Oh, so much, actually. It was weird because you would always go in a little bit prepared, maybe an hour before the show would tape. They would tell you the topics. Now, as a writer, we would know the topics a little bit before that because we were writing them for Chelsea, but we were focusing on her and not ourselves. So, but when you're just round table, too, they would tell you like an hour before, and then you would come up with your own jokes for the topics, but you never knew what anyone else was going to say. Even as a writer, you still wouldn't know what the other roundtable guests were going to say. So you had to be really ready to just let go of anything you prepared because it could go completely off the rails. And that was the coolest part. It was like sometimes it would be a lot of what you wrote because nobody was really improvising that day. And then a lot of times it was just like, well, I didn't expect that. So I'm going to, and you just had to be ready. So it was cool.
Now, for streaming services are huge these days,
Yeah.
and there's Netflix and there's Hulu, and you've got some work on Hulu. Is that right?
Yeah, my very first actual 1-hour stand-up special is on Hulu right now. It's called I Can't Feel My Legs, which came about as a title because I wore these really large heels during taping, and halfway through I was like, in my head, I didn't say it out loud, but I was in my head, I was like, I can't feel my legs. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go through this. And then I decided that should be the title of the show because kind of when you're watching it, you can sort of see that I'm not doing great in the heels. And it seemed appropriate to just call it out, But I love that service. And it's been really cool to have something on there and have people, they just find it, they don't know you, but they're watching Hulu and it pops up. And then they write you the next day on Twitter or Facebook and something and tell you that they saw it, and it's kind of cool.
Now, what do you feel, as for those people that don't know you, do they get more exposure from you through Hulu or actually from your books that you've written?
It's kind of a mixed bag, really. I mean, that's a great question, and I'm not sure. I wish I had. I mean, I'm sure Apple has some way to gauge that stuff if I was smart like them, but it's all sort of different. I get, tweets or messages from people that just read a book for the first time and they related to something, so they write me, or someone that saw the stand-up special. And then a lot of people that just come to clubs for the first time. They come to clubs regularly, but they see you for the first time, like this. So it's always it's kind of nice because I have different avenues to reach out to people.
Now, your 2 books, one of them you just released last year.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit about those books.
It's cool. My first one, which was called Life as I Blow It, was number 5 on the New York Times bestselling list, and that was, the first thing I ever put out there on my own. So that was obviously a great. It just made me feel like, oh, okay, people are interested in reading and seeing what I have to say. Because for me, it was kind of hard to think, well, how do I know people want to care? It's not like, I'm super famous or anything like that. But at the same time, I'm a reader, and you haven't necessarily heard of an author before you've read them. You just are a reader. So I had to sort of let my ego aside and just hope that people would read, and they did. And then it happened with the second one as well, and that one is called Has Anyone Seen My Pants? Obviously, I like really stupid titles, but it's been really good. And I think through my second one, I learned a little bit more about writing, so I felt even more confident writing that one, and the reactions have been great on both, so I'm really excited.
Now, the second one, is that actually based, the title of that, does that actually come from an Iowa experience?
Yes, yeah. There was a story in Iowa where it was in Burlington, Iowa, where I was performing there on New Year's Eve, but it was like I did one show with a friend of mine, Josh Wolf, who's also been here, and we were done at like 9:30, and then we still had all of New Year's Eve, but we were in this casino in Iowa, and it's not warm. It's snow deep outside, so we just stayed in the casino and just wandered around. And he had a little bit of pot on him, like edible pot. I'm not a pot person at all. I'm a drinker. I stick to that because I feel like I know my limit. I know when I can and can't. With pot, I feel like things go off the rails, which they did. And I ended up to cut the story short, at the end of the night, wandering out of my casino hotel room looking for cheese because I knew there was some in the green room still. And when I got back to my room, I looked down and realized I didn't have any pants on. I was still wearing my top from my New Year's Eve show, so it was a really good look, like a sequency top and no pants. And that's how I came up with the title, because in many ways, I felt like it resonates with just, obviously dating stories, that's the obvious, but other things too. Like in my 30s, I just sometimes I was just like, I just feel pantsless. Like I'm just caught with my pants down all the time in general, in life, in career, and anything. So the fact that it actually tied back to a story too was good.
Now, there was one more show that I wanted to ask you about that I thought was really cool. It's there's a show on Sci-Fi called The Scare Tactics, hosted by Tracy Morgan, and originally before that it was Shannon Doherty.
Yeah.
You spent quite a while on that show. Was there one trick or one scare that was really fun for you, or you thought a lot about?
There were a few. The thing about that show was so crazy was that they would just give us an outline, because you can't write it out because you don't know. You're interacting with people who don't know they're on a show, so you don't know what they're going to say. And for those who aren't familiar, you can look it up. But it was always the goal was to scare the hell out of people. And we did, and it was always set up by a friend, and you would always think someone was going to be angry, but at the end they were like, oh, my friend set me up, I guess I'm not mad. And I'm like, you should be so mad. But there was one in particular where I played someone's wife that supposedly was on bed rest and medicated and needed a girl to take care of her during the day. So this girl came over thinking she was going to be sort of like a daytime nurse, whatever. And then when my husband leaves, it turns out I'm shackled to the bed. He's, ran over me with a car to get my legs broken to make me stay there. Like this whole elaborate story. This girl got so freaked out that she just started running. She just left the house and started running down the street. Now, everyone, you have producers like in your ears with these earbuds telling you what to do. They're like, run after her. We need to catch her. She's just on a TV show. And I was like, I'm shackled to the bed. And I was trying to like break these like fake little chains. And it was, I ended up just running down the street with her, and they were like dragging behind me. And I'm yelling, you're on TV. And she was like, what? She came back, thank God, and knew before she went home that it was all a prank. But it was pretty crazy.
Nice. I like that. That's pretty cool. Make sure you check that out. You can find those clips of Scare Tactics online as well. And so for the people that want to keep in touch with you, you're all over the place on Twitter, Facebook. How can they keep in touch with you?
On Twitter at Sarah Colonna. All my tour dates and everything are on sarahcolonna.com. Facebook, Sarah Colonna. And then, on Hulu, I have my new special, I Can't Feel My Legs. And both my books, links to all my books are on my website.
Make sure you check those out. They're a good read. You're going to enjoy yourself reading those books.
Thank you.
And make sure that you check her out this weekend at the Funny Bone Comedy Club. Sarah Colonna, she's going to be here tonight, Thursday, and then, of course, 2 shows on Friday, 2 shows again on Saturday. So make sure you stop out this weekend and check her out. I want to thank you for hanging out with me a little bit.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Good luck and have yourself a great show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.